In every fictional world, there's always those who've reached the top, those who have achieved the pinnacle of power so much that nobody can stand up to them. Seriously, these people are so ridiculously strong that they can basically ragdoll their opponents with zero effort. Often this is thanks to their innate talents, intellect, and skill, but the main star of the show is always their abilities. These abilities are basically the shortcut to success. Without them, they wouldn't be weak, but they wouldn't necessarily be at the top of the verse either. So this had me thinking, out of all the so-called strongest in a respective verse, whose ability is the most superior, whose ability on its own did a majority of the heavy lifting and would make almost anyone skyrocket to the top of the verse. Before we begin, I decided not to include any abilities that involve manipulating reality or simple increased strength. These abilities are cool, but they are either too broken or too simple.
Yo, 久しぶり.
In Jujutsu Kaisen, strength is all about curse techniques. For Gojo Satoru, his overwhelming power stems from a rare combination, the Limitless curse technique and its eyes. At its base, the Limitless lets Gojo manipulate space at atomic level. Its most iconic application, Infinity, creates an untouchable field around him. Anything that approaches slows down infinitely, never making contact. This alone stops most opponents from even engaging in battle. But Infinity is only the beginning. Blue collapses space, forming a vacuum that pulls matter in. Red does the opposite, creating a concussive blast that violently repels matter. When combined into purple, Gojo releases a wave that raises anything in its path. What makes Limitless even more terrifying is its versatility. It provides overwhelming offense and impenetrable defense. Gojo can levitate, teleport, and trap enemies. His domain expansion, Unlimited Void, which floods opponents with infinite information, paralyzing them instantly. But the Limitless is only half the equation. The Six Eyes, a rare ocular ability, grants Gojo near-perfect perception of cursed energy, how it moves or originates, and how it's structured. It also makes his cursed energy usage infinitely efficient. Techniques that quickly drain others cost them almost nothing. Maintaining infinity, casting blue and red, and even sustaining a domain expansion becomes sustainable only because of the Six Eyes. The Limitless alone is immensely powerful, but it's also energy intensive and mentally demanding. Without the Six Eyes, it's unsustainable. That's why other members of the Gojo clan who've inherited Limitless have never reached this level. They lack the precision and efficiency to wield it fully. In a world shaped by scientific experimentation, few embody power does the heavy lifting, like Accelerator, the top-ranked level 5 Esper in Academy City. While his intellect, cold demeanor, and brutality define his persona, it's his vector control ability that secures his dominance. Vector control grants him total command over directional quantities, motion, force, pressure, heat, sound, electricity, any vector-based phenomena. Once active, his power calculates and reverses incoming vectors, reflecting bullets, punches, lasers, or even gravitational pulls. He doesn't dodge or block. Reality simply bends around him. But what elevates Accelerator is a synergy between his power and his computational genius. His mind operates like a supercomputer, processing vector data in real time. Eventually, Accelerator's mastery evolves so far that he manipulates forces on a cosmic scale. His ability has no natural ceiling. The only limitation is understanding. The Accelerator has long surpassed even that. Yet, his absolute power reveals a hidden vulnerability. Accelerator is nearly helpless without his ability. When his power is disrupted, he's overwhelmed by a regular high school boy. Strip away his vectors, and there's little left in terms of physical capability. Still, that doesn't diminish the truth. Vector control alone makes him number one. Military powers, scientific institutions, and supernatural factions treat him as one-man deterrent. Hand his power to any abnormally intelligent and scientifically literate person, and they too could rise to the top. In most stories, power is earned through discipline, training, or sacrifice. But in ReZero, power can be a gift. No one exemplifies this more than Reinhardt van Estrella, the world's strongest man. His strength isn't carried through effort or intellect. It's granted by the world itself. This power stems from a system of divine protections, blessings given to individuals. Reinhardt, however, possesses dozens, if not hundreds, each one enhancing his abilities in different ways. Reinhardt's divine protections are varied. Some are practical, like preventing sickness, ensuring peak physical condition, or counteracting poisons. Others are absurdly specific, such as making spirits like him. The most remarkable blessing, however, is the divine protection of the Sword Saint, which automatically makes him the world's greatest swordsman. No training, no effort, no lineage required. Reinhardt's swordsmanship is a gift from the world itself, enabling him to perform feats others could never reach, even in a lifetime. What's unique about Reinhardt's power is that it's not just an overpowered ability. He is the overpowered ability. His status isn't a result of ambition or character, but is a pre-written role by the world. The system that grants him these blessings ensures that he remains the untouchable pinnacle of power. Reinhardt has no real flaws. He doesn't strategize, train, or evolve. His gifts make him invincible, and unlike other characters, he's not reliant on a single ability like vector control or the six eyes. Even if several of his divine protections were stripped away, Reinhardt would still be a formidable force. However, Reinhardt's power is inseparable from the system that grants it. If every divine protection were removed, he would become unremarkable, no longer the untouchable hero, but an ordinary mortal. His supremacy exists only because the world chose him to be there. If the world withdrew its favor, Reinhardt's power would vanish instantly. His power is infinite in scope, yet fragile, as it depends entirely on the world's continued support. The Gates of Babylon is a literal treasury of the gods, giving Gilgamesh access to almost every noble phantasm in human legend. Not copies, but the originals. These mystic weapons include swords that can split mountains, chains that bind the gods, spears that ignore defense, axes that alter causality. Some have the power to destroy the world effortlessly, and with its mastery, Gilgamesh can summon, equip, and launch these weapons at will, often unleashing dozens at once in an unrelenting barrage. This is Gilgamesh's method of combat. Overwhelming force. He rarely engages in close combat unless pushed. Instead, he hovers above the battlefield, opening gates behind him and unleashing a flood of divine ornaments, leaving no chance for a proper counter. It's not about strategy or elegance, it's about dominance. The Gates of Babylon is a cheat code, making skill, planning, and restraint optional. It's not that he can't win without it, it's that he never has to. However, Gilgamesh is not without his own merit. He's an experienced warrior with combat instincts, hand-to-hand proficiency, and the wisdom of a ruler who has conquered much. But in practice, these skills are rarely used unless the gates fail. When an opponent survives his onslaught but closes the distance, Gilgamesh falters. His confidence becomes a liability as he expects victory from the very first move. In his fight with Shiro Emiya, Gilgamesh is caught off guard by someone using a lesser version of the very weapons he hoards. His over-reliance on the gates dulls his sense of grounded combat, and he struggles to adapt. This doesn't make him weak. Even without the gates, Gilgamesh is a demigod with monstrous strength and agility. However, his reliance on the vault reveals a hidden flaw. The Gates of Babylon are so powerful and versatile that it makes sense that he leans on it. Why duel when you can just level the battlefield with a single gesture? Gilgamesh doesn't fight like a tactician or a swordsman. He fights like a god who sees the world beneath him. Wonder View, the stand of Toru, is often regarded as one of the most powerful and terrifying stands in the JoJo universe, and for good reason. It embodies the concept of calamity, which is intrinsically linked to the larger abstract force of logic and reason that governs the world. These principles are the cause and effect relationship that guide everything we experience. Gravity pulls objects to the ground. Birds soar when they flap their wings. Oxygen is produced by trees. All these are predictable phenomena governed by a set of rules we call logic. Logic is essentially the pattern that explains why things happen the way they do. However, while logic and reason give us a framework for understanding the world, they are not the same as causality. Logic is a broader, more complex force that underlines all events, but it also has an unpredictable nature. In other words, everything that happens in the world is shaped by a series of interwoven causes and effects that extend beyond mere causality. Wonder Review taps into the inherent logic that governs the world and twists it to bring about calamity. The stand amplifies the negative aspects of logic that side that leads to misfortune, accidents, and disasters. By tapping into the natural flow of logic, Wonder Review essentially forces events to unfold in a way that results in misfortune for its target, as if the very rules that govern the universe are stacked against them. However, the stand user, Toru, is not the creator of this ability. He's completely irrelevant to its power. All Toru really did was guide the energy into physical form and contract it to protect him. As soon as Toru perished, Wonder Review continued to exist and operate on its own. Hell, it even existed before Toru was even born. Out of all these abilities, I'd argue that Calamity is the strongest simply by itself. Wait, just hear me out. Wonder Review is the perfect example of an ability that could skyrocket the user to the top of the verse, and here's why. The stand is tied to Calamity itself, manipulating the inherent logic and causality of the world to bring misfortune to its target. What makes Wonder Review so simple and terrifying is that it doesn't rely on intellect, skill, or effort of the user to function. It taps into an abstract, cosmic force, the very nature of cause and effect, altering events around the target to ensure disaster. Whether the user is a mastermind or someone completely unremarkable, it operates independently of them, continuing to function as its logic remains intact. Vector control requires a supercomputer-like brain or a literal multi-dimensional computer to use properly. Limitless needs the 6 eyes to work at max capacity, and Reinhardt's divine blessings require you to risk the planet. Given its sheer unpredictability and the universal principles it manipulates, anyone wielding Calamity would find themselves untouchable, making it arguably the most superior ability in terms of raw, uncontrolled power. A close second would go to the Gates of Babylon, due to the sheer amount of reality-bending weapons it holds, and the fact that it's not all that difficult to use, enabling anyone to skyrocket to the top of a verse by simply spamming attacks like Gilgamesh does. However, once someone closes the distance, a user would still need competent hand-to-hand skills to hold them off. There's also the fact that you likely have no idea how to utilize the unique weapons in the vault to a competent enough degree to defeat your foe, unless you just spam their abilities. Honestly, that's the only reason it's not number 1.